Appositives are my favorite grammatical construction. They add detail very simply. If you remember relative clauses, it will be very simple to create appositives. Basically, what you're doing with an appositive is removing the that or the who or the whom and taking the rest of the phrase and simply putting a comma next to what it what it modifies. The definition of an appositive is a noun phrase or an adjective phrase that defines or summarizes a noun next to it. The phrase usually means the same thing as the noun. It kind of defines it so the reader doesn't have to figure out what you're talking about, or it summarizes, it adds detail about it. You use different punctuation with appositives depending on the case. That takes some time to learn. Usually commas are used, but you can use dashes. An example, and I took these right from your book, in recent years several smash hit computer-generated movies have dominated film animation. One was Cars, one was Shrek, one was Finding Nemo. Now the Cars, Shrek, and Finding Nemo are renaming, adding information about film animation. We can do that very simply by putting a dash and then separating the three items by commas and ending with a period. That way your reader has added information, definition of film animation, what you mean by that, by giving examples. You can also use phrases as appositives. These three sentences are quite a bit longer. Mark Mathabane tells in Kaffir Boy of his involvement in the 1976 Swoto Township protests. Mark Mathabane is a resident of South Africa. Let's stop right there. We've got a phrase, a resident of South Africa, and it renames him, so all we're going to have to do is put in some commas there and stick in a resident of South Africa. That way we're talking about the place, because most people won't know what Swoto Township is. The next sentence, the Swoto Township protests, were street demonstrations in which hundreds of black South Africans were killed by police. Notice we're redefining what the protests were. Again, we could put a comma and add this phrase. So your sentence looks something like this. You could also use, instead of this comma, probably a dash. I prefer commas, but it depends what you want to do. The book talks a little bit in the chapter about the effect dashes have versus the effect commas have. I tend to use the dashes when I'm being more informal. Another example I have here will show you how to use it with a colon, a positive with a colon. A typical Swiss Army knife includes a variety of tools, and then we have all the tools listed. Nobody would probably write these sentences. We might do the tools include a watch, a tiny pen, blah, 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 but that's how it was in the book. Notice I put a colon after tools, and then I list the different items. Notice also the comma before the and. Again, appositives add detail simply. They just kind of move quickly into your sentence, and they add detail to make them fuller.